been involved with FIRST for 24 years, FRC for 17, I think. What was the other question? Why was it? I have no idea why I was selected. Maybe because we beat Citrus this year.
I'm Megan from 321, the Robo-Lancers out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've been with the team for 15 years, and my focus has been outreach and impact, which is probably why I'm here. Also back-to-back champs for some reason, by accident.
Alan Gregory from Team 3847 Spectrum. This is my 24th year in FRC, I believe. And yeah, so we're one of the founding members of Open Alliance, do all of our blog posts and things. I was also the recipient of the WFA in 2019.
Yeah, Mike Corsetto, head coach of 1678 Citrus Circuits. Been with them for 16 years now and been a part of FIRST since 2001. And yeah, I think I'm here because we beat Eugene on Einstein.
All right, so getting started, we did send out a form in Slack. Thank you for everyone who submitted questions, and we're going to be going off those just so everyone from all the rooms has had an equal chance to get these questions in. So without further ado, this was actually the first question submitted, and all of our panelists wanted to have this one answered. So what teams did you look up to along your first journeys?
I'll start real quick. We were really lucky to be in the Northern California area with a lot of really experienced teams. In particular, being near 254 has been really transformational for our team. I can recall back in 2011, our first year where we won an event, 254 was kind enough to host us for a practice day. But that was back when you had to bag the robot, maybe even ship the robot. I don't remember back then. But 254 hosted us. We practiced for, I think, the first time ever before going to a regional in 2011. And just watching a team of that quality operate at a really high level, I think really inspired myself, our students to keep pushing forward. And they've been continuing to be a bar for us in the program. And so, yeah.
Yeah, so going back all the way to when I was in high school, there were teams like Wild Sting in 2003 building things that I had no clue people could do in 6 weeks, and just really inspiring to learn so much more and keep pushing. Simbots through their entire run through the mid 2000s is one of the most phenomenal teams, everything they were doing. And then more locally, everyone in Texas is thankful to everything 118 has done to bring events and just show exactly what it is to be a quality FRC team.
For me, speaking about our district, Petty just crushes everybody in our district, but they're so open to sharing how exactly they did it. So that's always a team that we look up to. Daisy for their branding, and 1403 for how they prepare their students after the program.
Yeah, and similar to Mike, growing up in the Bay Area, playing against all these legendary teams, 254, 971, seeing, like, as a student, all this seems like so out of reach, so not possible. But then, as a senior, when I was a senior as a student, I started talking to these teams, like, wait, they actually have a lot of information to learn from. And then as I continued my journey as a mentor, getting to know all these really great mentors, learn from them, always setting the bar really high. And now, we realize that this bar isn't something that's completely not attainable for us. Like, if we keep our eyes high, follow these great teams, emulate these great teams, we can slowly close the gap, hopefully.
So I think as mentors, we can all attest that build season is hard. It's a lot of late nights, a lot of long hours. How do you personally prevent burnout, and how do you help the fellow mentors on your team burn out? And I'm going to pass it to Alan to start on this one.
So one of the things, our team is run a little bit different in just the way we're able to do things, but we don't have any specific required meetings. So the students are able to kind of set their schedule. So we meet a ton. There's somebody always working on things, but they're able to kind of come and go as they please. When they get overloaded with stuff, we kind of make sure we're like, hey, take a couple of days off, go get caught up on school, do what you need to do. Similar with mentors and things too, like even for events and stuff, we may not have a mentor there and we'll figure out how to fill and cover. Same with the students as much as we can. We try to make sure that they can have priorities and do other things outside of robots when they can.
Yeah, one of the things, at least to help prevent burnout on the mentor side, we really organize our program and our schedule around mentor availability. It doesn't like, it would be nice to meet a lot more in person, for the kids to like be able to build camaraderie and teamwork and stuff like that. But sometimes realistically, like the mentors can't meet. And the number thing that you don't want is your mentors to get burned out because then you don't have the program at all. So we really structure our meeting schedule around when mentors can meet. We have a pretty unique thing where we only meet in person on weekends. Like weekdays are mostly remote because that's what works with the mentors. And sometimes it's not ideal, but mentor burnout is the number one thing that we try and make sure doesn't happen.
Yeah, I guess some of the coaches on Citrus that are in the room can fact check me on some of this stuff. But one of the things I've said for a while now is that, I'm interested in coaching for the next 40 years, not the next 4 years. And I've reminded, especially when as our coaching staff has grown and we've had some new coaches come on board and be really excited to join in with the program and put a lot of time into it. To no fault of their own, the enthusiasm sometimes can lead to a little bit extra time put in than maybe is necessary or even beneficial to the team. And so reminding ourselves that at times that moderation key element is pretty important to keeping us in this for the long term. I think the other strategy that I have as a coach is I push as much work as humanly possible onto the students so that I have to do less. And that is a strategic move because these kids are in and out in 4 years. It's one of the best things about the program is we get turnover every 4 years. You have new faces every 4 years, but that it's constant influx of energy. Every 9th and 10th grader that joins the team is just a new bundle of like wonder and joy and excitement and energy. And if you can leverage that to your team and pull some of the effort off of your own shoulders, I'm way okay with like draining the high school kids down over 4 years, because I need to stick around for the next 10 generations of high school kids. And so if the more work we put on the kids, the better.
Alrighty. So as I'm sure many teams here have had struggles with both members and mentors, there's this constant sort of tension we have in first between learning and winning. And how do you balance that tension on your team, especially when there might be some disagreements?
So part of that to me is those aren't opposites in any way, right? Like the push to win is there to inspire and drive the learning. Like if we weren't trying to win, we would learn so much less and do so much less. The actual outcome, like the end goal banners don't matter if you don't actually get them. They're a little sad when you don't, like losing's not fun. But the goal is to drive to win because that drives the inspiration, that drives the learning to get everything done.
We don't focus on winning. We do it accidentally sometimes. Like we hadn't won a robot banner until this year, and we've been a team for 26 years. Our team's like mentality is more of chaotic fun, and so we want it to be an environment that everybody feels you're spending so much time there. We want it to be an environment that they actually want to come into, and it's not like a trauma story that they tell 5 years later after they've left the team. But we try to do everything we can to give them the tools to succeed. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, our take is a lot more similar to Alan's, where winning and learning aren't mutually exclusive. I think that the teams that actually learn the most are the ones that are the most successful because, and then that's why like first and that's what sets first apart, like the whole mentorship aspect of it. You can have a bunch of high school students tinker around in a lab with zero guidance, right? And are they going to learn? Probably less than if you had much more guided guidance from mentors, right? So I would actually argue that you learn much more from being successful, and being successful drives you a lot more to learn.
Yeah, there's a couple elements I'll add to that. I think your definition of success is really interesting. I think teams get fueled not necessarily off of winning, although winning is fun. I think what teams ultimately get fueled by is watching their robots do what they intended for their robot to do. I think a lot of teams deflate when they aim for a task that's far beyond their team's capabilities, and the robot doesn't match up with the wild and beautiful imagination that the kids have of what the success of the robot would be. And so I feel like that's where what you would classify as top teams are often doing is they're structuring their seasons so that the vision they had for the robot at the start of the season is actually what hits the field by the time champs comes around. And then I think the other thing is when we talk about learning, first is way more than a couple of like introductory engineering classes at your local four-year college. Like you're learning skills way beyond the technical, and you're learning about project management, you're learning about communication, you're learning about effective teamwork, things that you're going to take into your workplace, into industry, to ultimately be successful in those spheres as well. And so when we talk about like the balance of like success and learning, I think if your frame of learning is science topics and three-letter equations, then yeah, maybe you could do more of that if you just sat in a classroom and pumped knowledge all day. But when we talk about learning that's more holistic, how to be an effective leader, how to meet deadlines, those learnings correlate directly with success on the field. So I think a lot of teams that are pushing for success are teaching students skills, and they're learning things outside of the technical realm that they're going to take with them and be successful for a long time.
All right, so getting a little more personal, a little bit to the harder questions. You're warmed up now. You're ready. What is one thing your team could do better? Silence.
Make sure our robot doesn't disconnect on the field, especially on Einstein. We definitely need better processes and checklists when it comes to competition.
Like I think for almost every team, it's countless and countless things that we're always striving to do better. Yeah, like we're prepping now for the start of the season, and there's better organization stuff. We're redoing our workshop. There's better team management stuff. There's better ways. Like one of the problems right now we're trying to figure out is we have a second team that we started to really engage freshmen, but then we have this little lull when they're sophomores and aren't on drive team and things. So we're figuring out how to keep them engaged. How do we keep better outreach stuff? We don't have nearly the model of, we're a private school, so we don't have direct feeders. We don't have anywhere near the model of like the FLL and FTC pipeline that other teams do. There's so many things that we're always thinking about and working on to get better.
One thing we've been thinking about recently, we did our leadership group did a SMART goal setting workshop with our group a couple of weeks ago, and the topic of kind of trust came up on the team, which was an interesting topic to think about. Coach Norm mentioned trust a little bit in the keynote, and something that we struggle with as our team grows is maintaining like a sense of belonging and connection among all of our team members. It's not, I think the experiences of, oh, I don't have anything to do at today's meeting, things like that, those are byproducts of a deeper problem of a lack of connection, a lack of sense of belonging and understanding of why I'm here. Do I belong here? Are there things for me to do? And so we're working on that this year. Our leadership kids have committed to doing quarterly one-on-ones. I know this sounds very like corporate, but we're at 110 kids and like 15 coaches. And so, and we rely on our student leadership group of 10 students to really delegate that work and make it possible to scale to the size we're at. So we're trying to implement some more kind of common management practices in order to help facilitate those connections a little bit more. So yeah, and also I'm committing to doing quarterly one-on-ones with all the rest of our coaches. So they don't really know that yet, but we're doing it. So yeah, and we're going to keep track of it. And you know, it's a SMART goal, so we're going to measure it and see where we come at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think one of the things we're really trying to do is build up our mentor base. We had a bunch of alumni mentors in the mid 2000s to 2020s, and then COVID hit. People moved out of town. Some of us moved back, and now we're kind of like restarting with a really small group of mentors. And like Mike said, we want to be in this for the next 40 years, not the next 4 years. And having not enough mentors is a great way to burn out. So really engaging with our alum to see like who's back in the area, and really trying to grow our mentor group.
One common theme across many top teams is that they're able to really engage with others in the community, be it either their alliance partners on the robot side or other outreach partners for the Impact Award. So how does your team do that? And what are your tips for other teams out there so that way they can work with others better across the whole spectrum of first. No pun intended.
Alan has like the most partnerships in first, so I feel like Alan should take this first.
I mean, part of that is just being open and accessible, making it easy to be contacted, trying to also build those networks. So I think, I don't know where Andrew Hartnett is in here, but he has a talk later today, I believe, on building the networks in your own community. So like if you don't have area Slacks and things, getting those built up so you have that face that you can go to when something before a match, you already know and have a relationship with most of the teams in your area or at the event. Or if you don't, I try to like build some of those at the events. And so when you're ready to go and you're like, oh, their robot's broke, but we're playing with them in 4 matches, whatever it is, you can go up there. They're willing to help. They're willing to accept it because they already have that relationship with you. They don't think you're coming in to take over and do things. They know you're there because you're being generous and you want the best for them and you want them to be successful. So the prior relationship will help a lot. I think one of the ways that question is also answered is how do you just like directly at events help teams? And so like going into our alliance, we started building up some of those things, just like process on our part for like checklists for our partners and making sure we have teams of our mentors and students who know that they're ready to go and do those things and like checking over electrical systems, all of those things. So we can have those relationships already, but also put the best quality alliance we can out on the field, especially for playoffs, but sometimes for quals and stuff too. And Citrus does that better than probably everybody in the world. But
yeah, I mean, on that point, our founding mentor, Steve Harvey, he is a very competitive person, but I've never seen him more stoked than when an alliance partner that he's been working with for the last couple of hours does something on the field that they've never done before. Like the way that he celebrates those wins with those teams. It's a really unique and I mean, really rewarding experience for our whole team. But to Alan's point, we've kind of formalized some of those processes. We have our Citrus Service Group, which is 8 students at competition, and their only responsibility is to be a resource to every other team there. Steve Cohen, one of our coaches, works with the Citrus Service kids at competition. And then we have a separate group of students that are floating around and like you said, kind of checking the boxes, making sure alliance partners are ready and ramping to go for the start of each qual match. But I think the base is those relationships that you mentioned earlier. And for us, we don't really have the Slack networks and stuff like that as much, but Citrus Service has been like our front facing effort to really build a lot of camaraderie within the community and just further the principles we all know about first and how great it is that teams come along, share parts, share experiences, stuff like that.
Coming from the perspective where we don't have a bunch of students and a bunch of mentors that can like go around to all of our alliance partners 10 matches ahead to make sure that they'll be ready for our match. Like that's just not in the tables for us. What we do to like try and make sure that we're on the same page as our alliance partners for each match is really like genuinely make sure everyone's clear that everyone is in this match together, right? We like to play very flexibly. We always ask our partners what they want to do, because even if what they want to do doesn't perfectly align with your strategy, if that's what they're the most comfortable with, then they will feel listened to, they'll feel part of the team, and you really want to make your alliances more than the sum of its parts. I've been on alliances, I've seen alliances where theoretically these teams are all really good, but then you're just missing that trust and that magic to make the run all the way. Whereas a lot of on paper, like, oh, this alliance shouldn't be that good, but something about the way they play, you can clearly see that all the teams are trusting each other, and that comes from the very beginning when you approach a team for the first time, like genuinely make sure that you're all on the same page together.
In terms of the community aspect, we've been really trying to focus on bringing together a mentor network, and that's another way that we've tried to prevent burnout. Us and 1403 have been really working together on like building that community within our district, whether it's like a Slack channel where we share information with each other, or it's like parties, like we have parties at 1403's houses or our head coaches' houses. And it's just a way to meet mentors outside of that like competitive environment where you're very focused on your team and your matches, and you're only talking about robots and that specific match that you're in. But at these parties, we talk about anything and everything. There's still so much robot talk, but it's just like building those relationships so that there's a community and you actually have fun going to events instead of just like being in your own bubble.
as head coaches and in some cases here, or just lead mentors on your team, how do you get the other mentors engaged, and how do you keep them engaged and motivated throughout the season?
I'm looking at Zach, trying to get some answers from Zach. We've approached it a number of different ways, and I don't think we've been really effective at this in certain areas of our, or certain times in our team's past. Something we've tried to do more of lately is be a little bit more process oriented around who we bring into the team in the first place, including doing interviews with potential mentors, just to gauge their interest level, their availability, their background. Do they have a background working with youth in any capacity? And it's this balance with especially when you're bringing in new adults, it's this balance. Steve Cohen can probably relate to this because he's one of our newest coaches and had no background in FIRST, but is an incredible engineering manager. So it brings a ton of talent to the program, but really knew nothing about FIRST before starting on the team a couple of years ago. And it's this balance of allowing enough kind of space to explore the team and kind of explore what they like about it and what they might want to get involved in, but also not leaving them so out there to explore that they might feel like there's nothing for them to contribute or they don't have a purpose being there. So I think a lot of it for us, I mean, we're learning right now that a lot of it comes down to better communication with your mentor staff. We do it kind of levels out to about once every other month coaches meetings with all of our coaching staff. And we used to just meet at like a bar or something like that and just chat with no agenda. Last year or 2 years ago, we started to switch it up and we actually do like a formal meeting at the school for the first hour where we have a list of topics to talk about. And then whoever wants to go drink at downtown can do that afterwards. But like we've actually tried to be more structured about some of those processes, really to like help make sure that people aren't falling through the cracks and things like that.
Yeah, this was a somewhat new problem to Spectrum, as prior to 2020-ish, it was basically me and 25 kids for most of the robot side of things. But we've had 3 alumni come back to the team, and so that helped a little bit, as they already kind of had the culture, kind of had some of the expectations, and now we're bringing in a few more people to try to get them onboarded. And a lot of that is, like Mike said, is communicating so much and making sure they have a very defined role and expectations of what we need from them, limiting it pretty early and being like, yeah, the lab's open every day. Don't come every day. Be here when we need to. Tell us when you're going to be here. Communicate, and we can build that trust. Whatever activities we can do with quite a few of us, we end up doing volunteer stuff together. At other things we're going out to FIRST Global later. So like, there's a lot of things we can do to build trust with ourselves. Then we're all know that if something needs to happen, we can easily communicate and be like, hey, we don't got this. Somebody needs to come in. We need more hands to figure this out, or whatever the next thing is to push the team forward.
All right. I think we only had 2 lead mentors here on our panel. Getting a little bit more personal here, I guess. What got you involved with the team you're currently on, and what keeps you involved year after year? Maybe we'll start with Megan on this one.
So my dad's an engineer, and all of my uncles are engineers, and my aunts are all pharmacists. So it was always something that has been in my household. And so when I joined at Central, honestly, my friend was like, I don't want to be the only girl on the team. Can you come with me? And that was a big reason why I joined. But then I fell in love with the people on the team, and we were able to shift the culture of the team to be more community oriented instead of just focused on ourselves. And I really loved being able to do that and continuing that work. It's been work I've been doing for the last decade of supporting our community. Our mission is just to inspire and prepare the next generation of STEM leaders in Philadelphia. And it's a mission I really believe in. So that's why I'm still here. That's one part of it. And the other part is that I want to be the mentor that I needed when I was in school. We had one head coach, and that was pretty much it. And there were, not on my team, but at competitions, there were a lot of situations that were not great for me. I was treated a specific way based off of my gender, my ethnicity, and just generally how I looked. And I just didn't feel comfortable sharing that with anybody because I was afraid that I wouldn't be believed, or like people would think I'm making a big deal of nothing, even though it made me feel so horrible. And so I want to make sure that my students know that they have an advocate and they have somebody that is going to be there to help them through those tough conversations and tough situations, because they're not alone and someone will believe them.
Okay, so a lot of my like the places I was able to do and be in first come down to some of it is end up just being luck. So like the fact that I was ever exposed to FRC at all is because my sister happened to be dating a boy in high school. She's 5 years older than me, in like 7th grade, whose dad happened to mentor the first year at the team in our town, and he like somehow my parents just let me drive away with this like junior in high school to go help at the kickoff for the very first FRC team in the town. Like I have no idea why any of that happened. And it was basically like, hey, I need to go there. And my mom ended up being able to get a job as the librarian at that school, so I could travel across town every day to be on the FRC team. So that was how I was able to even just do FRC at all. And then I wasn't planning to do it in college. And then I happened to sophomore year, Andy Lynch found me somehow at Rice and was just like, hey, you want to help me start this team? I was like, not really, but if you need somebody to just do electrical for a bit, okay, I can come in every once in a while. And then I was there every day of the week and for like 4 years. And then for the team we're on now, Spectrum, when I graduated from Rice, I ended up staying in Houston doing AmeriCorps Vista at the food bank. One of my friends was teaching algebra at St. Agnes, the school that we're at, and they were like, hey, our person that does this robot thing is retiring. Do you want to teach robots? And he was like, absolutely not. But my friend does robots all the time. And then I met with the principal and they were like, hey, we'll give you some money to do robots. And then it's 14 years later.
I think like a lot of alumni that are still coming back into the program, FRC was my thing in high school. It was the thing that I did. And more specifically, I had an experience in 2006 at the Pacific Northwest Regional where we were on a playoff alliance with Team 360. And Eric Stokely was their drive coach at the time. And I remember being so impacted by the model he set as a mentor in first, the enthusiasm, the energy, the passion for what we were doing in the program. It stuck with me. And I knew kind of at that moment that I was going to come back and be involved in this program in some way. And then I got hooked up with Citrus because I was a student at UC Davis, was introduced to the founding teacher, Steve, about a year into my time there at Davis. And the team was very different back then. We would meet for the first time at kickoff and decide who our captain was then. And then we would, we'd be knocked out in the quarterfinals at the Sacramento Regional. It'd be like, great, see you later. See you in 9 months, right? That was our season schedule. And so what's kept me around since then, I think part of it is that model that was set to me so early on in kind of my development as a young adult, and meeting people like Eric and learning that this could be something that I could be invested in my whole life. And then I think what keeps me coming back is in part getting to see the students develop every year. I love the generations of students that come through Citrus and how the team changes and forms over time. And then, my wife will remind anybody, I'm a total extrovert. I love being in places like this. And so I think just the community that's built up, not just within our own team, but around the world, and getting to be a part of that, a part of this kind of global community is something that, I think all the time about, would this be the last year for me? Is next year the last year for me? It's really hard to think about giving something like this up.
I forgot to answer the second part of that. So the reason why I keep coming back, pretty much every few weeks, every day almost, is the thought is like, hey, should I be doing something else? Is there something else better? And the answer is almost always FRC is the thing that I know I'm good at and can keep doing and enjoying, that I know I have a huge impact and can change the world doing. Like that is, as much as we talk about like banners, whatever, then none of that actually matters. It is the fact that we're able to impart the lessons and the values and just make better people because they had this experience and were a part of the team, that gets us going every day and every year to keep pushing the program and making it better and having more students come through it.
Yeah, so I got into first because some random parents at my elementary school put together this Lego team, FLL team. It was like the second year FLL ever existed. They discovered it, put this team together, literally changed my life. I can't thank them enough. So yeah, by the time high school rolled around, like FRC was obviously the next step, right? So like getting into it wasn't really that that hard for me. It was just kind of expected because I enjoyed it all so much. Why I keep coming back, it's like I've truly seen that, well, the best practical engineers I've met in my life are FRC alum. Like hands down, like people who can actually get things done right, get things done well, have all been FRC alum. So like I know the impact of this program, what the program has had on others, what it's had on me, and I just want to make sure that the students keep getting this opportunity.
So all 4 of your teams have had success both on the robot playing field as well as on the impact, or chairman's as it used to be called, side. How do you balance those 2 things and be successful in both areas?
I think this maybe goes back a little bit to the success versus learning aspect too. We have our team motto inspired by having a motto from 3132. You told us we should have a motto, so we made a motto, and it's educate, empower, excel. And I really view those 3 as the 3 pillars of our team. And it's a positive reinforcing feedback loop where our ability to impact our community is only possible because we have a group of 100 students that are laser focused on being the best team possible, both on and off the field. And the fact that they're pushed to such a high performance level with the robot means that they have the mentality, the focus, the teamwork, the project management skills that we talked about to do things like we just got finished wrapping up 8 weeks of summer camp where we served almost 500 students across those 8 weeks. Those camps were run entirely by high school kids with an adult there to supervise and make sure nothing went off the rails. But like not just running the camp, but setting up the online registration, doing emails to all these parents. I mean, we have 500 sets of customers in the community that are looking to our kids, and they're doing a great job at it, right? And so that sort of accomplishment wouldn't be possible without the drive that we have on the field and the type of students that's building up. If you're interested in learning more about it, Kanwar is going to be here tomorrow. She's our new lead teacher, and she ran all of our RoboCamps this summer. And she can tell you just how easy her job is because of how amazing the kids are at running these camps week after week. And so, yeah, I really view the 2 of those things as really feeding into each other more than having to choose to divide time between the 2 things. Investing as much as you can into both things, they come back to each other.
Sure, yeah. If you measure success by blue banners, I would say that we are awful at balancing robot and outreach because every year we've won an Impact or Chairman's Award, we haven't won a robot blue banner. And every year that we won a robot blue banner, we haven't won an Impact or Chairman's banner, except for 2010. Class of 2010. But if your measure of success isn't blue banners, I would say that the biggest thing that helps us like continue to have an impact on our community is really instilling in the students this idea that they are role models to younger students just as we are role models to them. I would like to think that the students look up to us in both how we approach problems, how we communicate, how we help them, how we lift them up, how we really empower them. And those that really understand how much they're getting out of the program understand that they can be the same role model to middle school students, elementary school students, et cetera. So it's chain all the way down.
Yeah, part of it for us is a lot of what we focus on is helping the rest of the FRC community with the resources and everything. And part of that is just the information's already there. We're doing it for us to figure out how to do things. We're getting our students to understand that, yeah, we're getting better, but all of these other students can have the same opportunity and can learn from the things that you're doing. And getting that drive into them helps a lot for keep them wanting to do those different things. And then around our community as well, they're super excited to go back to the schools they were at and show off their robot and do the STEM camps and demos and all of those things as well. And whatever other ways they can help their community and give back, knowing that they've benefited from all of those things before.
We definitely don't measure robot success off of banners because, again, we just won our very first robot banner this year. But I think as a team, we focus on just trying to get a little bit better every single time. we say it's like get 1% better all the time, whether it's like focusing just on that single match of like, hey, let's make sure we're not disconnected this time, or in outreach, hey, let's reach out to more underserved teams instead of just like magnet schools, which is a shift that we made a couple of years ago. It's always trying to refine our processes and figuring out what worked and what didn't, and then just continuing to iterate as quickly as possible.
We actually had a question come in since the panelists started, so they don't know this one's coming. So we'll give them an extra second to think here. But how does your team approach diversity, equity, and inclusion? And how are you making sure it's a welcoming place for all students?
I'll start off with one of the easy first steps that we've taken that's helped is it's a part of our coach onboarding process. So the first headquarters has a really fantastic set of resources around this topic I mean, they have student trainings as well, but they also have mentor trainings on there. And so we ask that all of our coaches go through that process, and then they take a screenshot of their certificate, send it to me, I log it. Again, SMART goals, we want to measure. So we measure completion of that. But yeah, that's one thing that we started doing over the last 3 years. I think the resources haven't been around for too much longer than that on the website. And that's been really helpful for us.
Yeah, so we're in a somewhat unique situation. We're two private Catholic schools in the middle of Houston. So we do have to somewhat walk some lines there, but we're also able to make sure that our mentor base is very diverse. We pull a far more diverse community from our school community than the overall population. Part of that is making sure that when we do the recruiting and interest efforts, we're showing them that, hey, they have a place here. There's always a role. We'll pull people in with the idea that, hey, you want to come design t-shirts, and we'll make sure that by the end of the day, they're laser cutting things and building prototypes. So like, we'll get them going as fast as we can, and putting in that effort that, hey, you can come talk to us. This is a welcoming place. This can be a little bit different than the exact population you're in with the rest of the community. And then working with the two schools also just to improve that as well through all of their initiatives and stuff at our campuses.
So my high school, it pulls kids from all over Philadelphia. So I think pretty much every zip code is accounted for, but it doesn't necessarily always reflect the same way on our team. It ebbs and flows, where some years it really aligns with our team statistics, really align with our team, with our school and our community. But there are also years where it doesn't. And that's something that we've faced recently. And something that we've been doing is reaching out to cultural clubs, because cultural clubs are one of the biggest things within our school, just so they know that like there's a place for them too, and exactly what are the things that they can do, the concrete parts of being on a robotics team, which is not just building the robot. There's so many other things that they could do, and just trying to build and foster that community where they feel like they actually want to be there, instead of feeling like it's just another chore or another club that they can put on their resume. Just building that community is something that has been a big focus for us.
Yeah, one of the things we try and do is make sure that the people who are heard aren't the ones with the loudest voice. It's the ones with the right ideas. So among mentors, we try really hard to make sure that like when people have an idea, they are deservedly heard. And it's not just whoever's like shouting the loudest. And that's really helped elevate a lot of the more quieter members of the team, underrepresented members of the team, to be real leaders and act as role models for incoming students. And they're like, oh, wow, I can be like them. And just making sure that all the students respect the right ideas, not just the loudest voices.
So we started a DEI program where the students are some students are a part of a DEI committee. So when there's issues, the students go to the DEI committee, and then they talk about effective ways to handle these tough situations. And then if necessary, it gets elevated up to the mentors and coaches for issues. But that's something that we've been doing recently, just to try to make sure that it's a welcoming environment for everybody.
So one of the things I love about the Mentor Conference is that this weekend is a chance for all of us to fill our cups back up. And, you know, there's so much draining throughout the season. It's hard. So what is one of those just magical moments you've had in your time as a first mentor? Touchy-feely, make them cry.
I got to share a story that I won't cry saying. So, gosh, I think one of the most touching moments. Gosh, I am gonna cry. Okay, so we had an amazing regional director, James Beck, who basically like grew the Silicon Valley First program out of nothing, and he was an amazing guy. I knew him all growing up through high school. He'd always stop by the team meetings during build season and see how we're doing. And he wasn't a robot guy at all. He couldn't, tell the difference between a bolt and a nut. But he was there for us, and he was getting sick in 2015, and that was the year we won champs. And it was like 20 minutes after we won, and he called me up, and just hearing how proud he was of us, and yeah, I don't know, that was like one of the most special moments in the program for me. Yeah. Sorry, I took a flash.
I don't want to follow that up, but I think something that the spark for high school for me was at our first ever outreach event. We did it mainly to try to as a fundraiser, but we had no idea what we were doing. I was running it, and I had no idea what we were doing, and I just thought it was just another thing a thing that we could do. But when I stopped in on a workshop, and it was, I think, an 8-year-old, and he was struggling so much to try to make the blocks move in the program. I don't even remember what program we were using, but he was just struggling so much, and he was so frustrated. And then one of my teammates came over and sat with him and explained all of the steps that he needed to take and walked him through the whole process. And when he finally was able to make the blocks move in the way it was supposed to, he was like jumping up and down, and he ran up to his mom and was telling her about how he wanted to do more of this. And I think that's the moment where our team culture changed, and we started to work with our community more, because we wanted to make sure that every student in our area had that opportunity, not just the ones who had the access to it currently or the funding to have that. And as a mentor recently, like I talked about this earlier about not being in situations where people don't believe you when something happens. And I had come out of a Dean's List interview with my student. I was the mentor observer, and I went to go find my lunch, and my student was waving it around. And I was like, okay, she's just telling me where it is. And I walk up to her, and I hear her in a conversation with another team. And she's like, yeah, Megan will beat him up. And I was like, what am I doing? I just want my lunch. I don't know what's going on. And it was an unfortunate situation where a parent was being really aggressive to this all-girls team. And so I had to step in and kind of understand what was going on, and then found the resources at the competition, the event director, to actually escalate the issue, and then put in an MRI, because their mentor was brand new. He had no idea what the process was. And just being able to step in and help in those situations reminds me why a big reason of why I'm still here, because I wouldn't have known what to do when I was a student, and I wouldn't have gone to anybody. But the fact that the students now are so willing and comfortable to come up and say, hey, there's a situation that makes me uncomfortable, that's a huge reason why I'm still here.
A little bit lighter. Some of the things, a lot of them are just getting those students who don't necessarily know they can do this and fit in over just so many times over the years. We had one of our sophomores, as we were doing our interest meeting last week, part of what she told the new students was she didn't know what she really wanted to do in high school. She told us, the coaches at one point, that her parents were thinking about moving just right as she was starting her freshman year. And one of the reasons they did it is because she basically went home and was like, hey, I found my people. These are where I need to be. This is where I can be and do my best. And there's so many of those stories, is that you can get someone who really just, they might be smart, they might know things, but they don't really know if they can do things. And FRC gives them the place to know that they can feel valued and do so much with their abilities and the gifts they're given and the person that they are.
What was the question again?
What's one touchy-feely story, heartstrings, make us cry maybe make Mike cry again.
Sure. No crying here. But I think the group of seniors that graduated this year, this was the group that joined during COVID. Their freshman year was 2021 at-home challenges. We were working out of one of the team members' like townhouse parking lots. But like a few of the students like just came every day, right? And like we're in the middle of COVID, we're not really doing anything interesting. But like they showed up, right? And as freshmen at the time, they were clueless, they didn't know anything. And I like the amount of time they put in, even though we weren't having competitions or doing anything crazy fun, just that dedication really stood out to me. And watching them grow over the last 4 years and finally graduating, like it's how much they've grown is so obvious. And just to think that they had no reason to stay in 2021.
All right, rapid fire because we are out of time, but there's one question that was so good I just could not ask it, but it was a perfect one to wrap up with. We started off by asking you what teams you looked up to when you were kind of getting started. For those teams that are out there looking up to you today, what is the one sentence, and I mean one sentence, Mike, that you would give them of advice? We're just going to go down the row, starting with you, Dean. Okay, we're starting with Mike.
Spend more of your resources focused on your student leaders.
There's never been more to know to do FRC well, but there's also never been a better time to have those resources available for you and your students to learn everything there is to be a better FRC team.
Foster an environment where crazy ideas are allowed to flourish. Your job as a mentor is to say yes and just to let them run wild with their ideas, but also be agile. And if it's not working, move on to the next thing.
What they said.
All righty. Before anyone leaves, I have one schedule announcement. Unfortunately, the presenter for product and project management and FRC was unable to come. He had an emergency situation come up, so that session is not going to happen. I did post in general, but I wanted to make sure everyone heard that.